Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the window of the human ship, Endeavor, and watched the most beautiful sight she had ever seen. The planet below them glowed like a jewel in space. Cities of crystal and light covered its surface, and thousands of ships moved between floating platforms in the sky. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," said the alien voice through the ship's speakers. "Please prepare for landing sequence." Elena turned to her team. Dr. James Chen was already at his computer, taking notes about everything he saw. Captain Rodriguez checked his weapon one more time, though they all knew this was supposed to be a peaceful meeting. The rest of the diplomatic team looked excited and nervous. This was it. First contact with the Galactic Confederation. After 200 years of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they finally had their answer. Not only were they not alone, but there was an entire galaxy full of advanced civilizations waiting to meet them. The landing went smoothly. The Confederate representatives met them at the spaceport with great ceremony. Elena had studied their files during the long journey, but seeing them in person was still amazing. The Dominari were tall and elegant, with blue-gray skin and large black eyes. The Technari looked like living machines made of metal and light. There were dozens of other species, all different, all clearly much more advanced than humans. Chancellor Zexhai of the Dominari stepped forward. He was clearly the leader. When he spoke, his voice was calm and controlled. "Welcome, humans of Earth. We have waited long to meet you. Your species shows great promise." Elena bowed slightly, as her training had taught her. "Thank you, Chancellor. We are honored by this meeting. Earth looks forward to learning from your great civilization." The Chancellor's face showed what Elena thought was a smile, though it was hard to tell with alien features. "Come, we will show you the wonders of our alliance." The next few days were like a dream. The Confederates showed them technology that seemed like magic. They had ships that could cross the galaxy in days. They had machines that could build entire cities in hours. They had cured diseases that humans had never even imagined. "All of this could be yours," Chancellor Zexhai explained as they toured a massive space station. "Join the Confederation, follow our rules, accept our guidance. In return, you will have peace, prosperity, and protection." Elena was impressed, but she was also a diplomat. She knew there was always a price for such gifts. What exactly would be required of us? Simple things. You would need to follow Confederation law. Accept our social structures. Allow us to help you improve your genetic heritage. Remove the more dangerous aspects of your nature. Elena felt a small warning bell in her mind, but she kept her face calm. Dangerous aspects? Humans are very emotional, very aggressive, very unpredictable. These traits cause suffering and inefficiency. We can help you become better. That evening, Dr. Chen came to Elena's quarters. He looked worried. "I need to show you something," he said quietly. "I've been looking at their biological databases. There are some strange things." He showed her his computer screen. "Look at these species listings. Thousands of them are marked as archived or completed optimization. When I ask about them, the Confederates just say they're old records." Elena frowned. "Maybe those species evolved into something else?" "That's what I thought. But look at this." Chen pulled up another file. "I managed to access some of their historical records. These archived species didn't evolve. They just stopped existing. All at once, recently." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I think the Confederation has been getting rid of species they don't like." Elena felt cold. "That's a serious accusation, James. Are you sure?" "I'm not sure of anything, but I want to find out more." 2 days later, Chen burst into the diplomatic meeting room where Elena was discussing trade agreements. "Elena, you need to see this right now." His face was white with shock. Elena excused herself and followed him to his temporary lab. "I found a way into their security feeds," Chen said, his hands shaking as he worked the computer. "I was looking for more information about the archived species. I found it." The screen filled with images that made Elena's stomach turn. Ships surrounded a planet. The planet was green and beautiful, with cities that looked like flowers. Then the ships fired. The cities burned. The atmosphere caught fire. In minutes, the entire world was dead. "This happened 6 months ago," Chen whispered. "The species was called the Melodians. Their crime was refusing to accept Confederation social reforms." Elena watched in horror as the screen showed more scenes. Different planets, different species, always the same ending, death from above, quick, efficient, complete. "How many?" she asked. Chen's voice was barely audible. "The files I found show over 2,000 species in the last millennium, all marked as genetic failures or cultural incompatibles, all eliminated." Elena sank into a chair. The beautiful technology around them suddenly felt like a trap. The kind words of the Chancellor now sounded like threats. The offer of improvement was really a demand for surrender. "We have to get this information back to Earth," she said. "There's more," Chen said. "I found Earth's file." He showed her a document marked with human genetic data and cultural assessments. At the bottom was a recommendation. "Species shows promise, but requires significant optimization. Emotional instability and aggressive tendencies present long-term risk. Recommend voluntary improvement program followed by administrative termination if compliance not achieved." Elena read the words twice to make sure she understood. Then she stood up. "Pack everything. We're leaving. Now." "What about the negotiations?" "There's nothing to negotiate. We just learned that our new friends are mass murderers, and they're planning to kill us too if we don't let them turn us into something we're not." As Elena walked back to the meeting room to make their excuses, she thought about the beautiful planet below and the advanced civilization around them. She thought about the Chancellor's kind words and generous offers. She thought about the thousands of dead worlds and extinct species. Most of all, she thought about what she would tell the people of Earth when she got home. How do you explain that first contact was really an ultimatum? How do you tell an entire planet that the galaxy is ruled by murderers who think killing is just good business? Elena straightened her shoulders and walked into the meeting room with a smile on her face. She had work to do. Elena walked into the Great Council chamber with Dr. Chen beside her. Her diplomatic training told her to be calm, but her heart was beating fast. She carried a datapad with the evidence Chen had found. Images of burning worlds, lists of dead species, proof that the Galactic Confederation was built on mass murder. Chancellor HFY sat at the center of a curved table with representatives from dozens of species. They all looked at Elena with what seemed like friendly interest. She wondered how many of them knew the truth. "Ambassador Vasquez," the Chancellor said, "we are pleased you could join us for this final discussion. Have you made your decision about Earth's membership?" Elena stepped forward and placed the datapad on the table. "Yes, Chancellor, but first I need to discuss what we found in your databases." She activated the pad. The holographic display filled the air above the table with images of the Melodian world burning. The alien representatives watched without expression. "We found records of systematic genocide," Elena said. "Over 2,000 species wiped out because they wouldn't conform to your standards." She expected shock, denial, anger. Instead, Chancellor HFY nodded calmly. "Yes. What is your point?" Elena stared at him. "My point? You've committed genocide on an unimaginable scale." "We have maintained order," the Chancellor corrected. "The galaxy is a dangerous place, Ambassador. Resources are limited. Space is finite. Some choices must be made." Another representative spoke up. This one looked like a tall insect with multiple arms. "Perhaps you do not understand our history, human. Before the Confederation, there was chaos, war, suffering, Billions died in endless conflicts. So you decided to do the killing yourselves? Elena asked. We decided to be efficient about it, Chancellor HFY replied. Better to eliminate problem species before they can cause harm to others. Better to prevent wars than to clean up after them. Dr. Chen stepped forward. His voice was shaking with anger. You murdered entire civilizations. Billions of innocent beings. We processed inefficient genetic lines, said a machine-like voice. Elena looked and saw one of the Technari had spoken. Biological entities that could not adapt to optimal social structures. Cultures that insisted on resource-wasting practices. It is no different than removing diseased tissue from a body. Elena felt sick. These weren't evil monsters. They were worse. They were bureaucrats who had turned genocide into paperwork. Show me the full records, she demanded. Chancellor HFY touched a control panel. The air filled with data. Names of species Elena had never heard of. Dates going back 1,000 years. Reasons for termination that sounded like business decisions. The singing trees of harmony, eliminated 847 years ago. Reason, refused to accept standardized communication protocols. The crystal builders of New Hope, eliminated 623 years ago. Reason, inefficient resource allocation in artistic pursuits. The Dreamweavers of Sanctuary, eliminated 234 years ago. Reason, psychological techniques incompatible with Confederation mental health standards. The list went on and on. Each entry was a dead world, a lost culture, a murdered future. Why are you showing me this? Elena asked. Because you need to understand, Chancellor HFY said. This is not cruelty. This is necessity. Every species we have eliminated was given the same choice we are offering you. Adapt or be processed. Most chose adaptation. They are now happy, productive members of our society. And the ones who chose to be processed? They chose extinction over progress. We respected their choice. Elena looked around the table at the alien faces. Some looked sad, others looked bored. None looked ashamed. You're going to ask us to make the same choice, she said. We are offering you the same opportunity for improvement that we offer all species, the Chancellor replied. Genetic optimization to remove aggressive tendencies, social restructuring to eliminate inefficient emotional responses, cultural adjustment to prevent resource waste. And if we refuse? Chancellor HFY touched another control. The display changed to show Earth. Beautiful, blue, full of life. Then you will be processed like the others. A new voice spoke from across the table. Elena looked and saw a creature that looked like a walking plant. Perhaps a demonstration would help the humans understand. Excellent suggestion, Velnara, the Chancellor said. We were planning to process the Melodian's sister world today anyway. Perfect timing. The display changed again. This time it showed a world that looked like Earth, but with purple oceans and silver trees. Cities covered the surface like jewels. Elena could see ships moving between the cities, carrying what looked like normal daily traffic. The Melodians had a colony world, Chancellor HFY explained. When their main planet refused optimization, we gave the colony a chance to prove they were different. Sadly, they have also chosen to maintain their inefficient cultural practices. Elena watched in horror as Confederation ships appeared around the planet. They were massive dark vessels that blotted out the local sun. Please, she said, don't do this. Let me talk to them. Maybe we can work something out. The decision has been made, Chancellor HFY said. Administrative processing has been authorized. The ships fired. Elena watched an entire world die in real time. The purple oceans boiled. The silver trees turned to ash. The cities melted like candles. In 15 minutes, another species was extinct. Efficient, said the Technari representative. Standard processing time achieved. Elena found her voice. You're monsters. We are gardeners. Chancellor HFY corrected. We tend the galaxy. We remove weeds so that useful plants can grow. Dr. Chen grabbed Elena's arm. We need to leave, now. Elena nodded. She picked up her datapad and stood up. Earth will need time to consider your offer. Of course, the Chancellor said. You have 6 standard months. That should be sufficient time to prepare your population for the optimization process. Elena turned and walked toward the door. Behind her, she heard Chancellor HFY speaking to his staff. Add a note to the human file. Emotional reaction to processing demonstration suggests high optimization requirements. Recommend full cultural restructuring before genetic modification. Elena and Chen walked through the crystal corridors of the space station in silence. Other aliens nodded politely as they passed. Some even smiled. They all looked normal, civilized, friendly. None of them seemed to care that they had just watched a planet die. When they reached their ship, Elena finally spoke. James, send a message to Earth. Code red priority. Tell them we're coming home. Tell them to prepare for war. What about negotiations? Chen asked. Elena looked back at the beautiful space station with its advanced technology and diverse species. There's nothing to negotiate. They've made their position clear. Submit or die. She walked to the pilot's seat and started the launch sequence. And James, make sure Earth knows what they're really dealing with. This isn't just about us. It's about every free species in the galaxy. The ship pulled away from the station and turned toward home. Behind them, the Confederation continued its business as usual, planning optimizations, scheduling processing operations, managing the galaxy like a garden where anything that grew too wild had to be cut down. Elena watched the stars and wondered if Earth had 6 months to prepare. She wondered if 6 months would be enough. Most of all, she wondered if the Confederation had any idea what they had just done by threatening humanity. Elena wanted to leave immediately, but Chancellor HFY had other plans. When she requested departure clearance, the answer was simple. Not yet. We have one final meeting, the Chancellor explained when she contacted him. There are some details about humanity's future that require clarification. Elena felt a cold fear in her stomach, but she had to play along. Of course, Chancellor. When would you like to meet? Now. The meeting room was different this time, smaller, more private. Only Chancellor HFY and 3 other high-ranking Confederates were present. Elena brought Dr. Chen and Captain Rodriguez with her. Please sit, the Chancellor said. His tone was friendly. But Elena noticed that the door had sealed behind them. Ambassador Vasquez, we have been studying your species very carefully during your visit, the Chancellor began. We have learned much. I hope the information was helpful, Elena said carefully. Very helpful, but also concerning. The Chancellor touched a control, and the air filled with data about humans, psychological profiles, genetic analysis, cultural assessments. Humans are remarkable in many ways, he continued. You adapt quickly. You learn fast. You create beautiful art and solve complex problems. Elena waited for the but. But you are also deeply flawed. You are driven by emotions rather than logic. You form irrational attachments. You resist authority. Most concerning of all, you are extremely aggressive. Dr. Chen spoke up. Aggressive? We've been nothing but peaceful during our visit. The Chancellor smiled. Your history tells a different story, Doctor. Wars spanning centuries, weapons capable of destroying your own world, violence as entertainment. You are a species that has spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing. We've also spent thousands of years working for peace, Elena said. Yes, but that peace is fragile. Built on temporary agreements, not true understanding. We have seen this pattern before. Species that seem peaceful until they feel threatened. Then the violence returns. Another Confederate representative spoke. This one looked like a tall, thin humanoid covered in scales. We have run projections based on your technological advancement rate and psychological profiles. Within 200 years, humans will have weapons that could threaten Confederate security. Elena felt her heart racing, but she kept her voice calm. Are you saying you see Earth as a threat? We are saying we see Earth's potential as a threat, Chancellor HFY replied, which is why we must act now, while the problem is still manageable. The room fell silent. Elena realized that this had never been about offering humanity membership. This had been about deciding whether to kill them. What exactly are you proposing? She asked. Chancellor HFY activated another display. This one showed a detailed plan for human optimization. Genetic modification to remove aggressive tendencies, psychological conditioning to increase compliance with authority, cultural restructuring to eliminate competitive behaviors, social organization to prevent the formation of independent power structures. Elena stared at the plan in horror. It wasn't just changing humans, it was destroying everything that made them human. This is not optimization, she said. This is elimination. You want to turn us into something completely different. We want to turn you into something better, the Chancellor corrected. Something that can exist peacefully within our civilization. Captain Rodriguez had been silent until now, but Elena saw his hand move slowly toward his weapon. She caught his eye and shook her head slightly. Not yet. And if we refuse, she asked, then you will be processed like any other incompatible species. Elena felt the weight of 6 billion human lives on her shoulders. How long do we have to decide? 6 standard months. That should be sufficient time to begin the optimization process on volunteers. Once your population sees the benefits, resistance will decrease. Dr. Chen leaned forward. What makes you think we won't just fight? The scaled Confederate made a sound that might have been laughter. With what? Your most advanced ships are barely capable of interplanetary travel. Your weapons are primitive chemical explosives. We have fleets that span star systems and weapons that crack planets. Chancellor HFY touched another control. Perhaps another demonstration would be helpful. The display showed space around the Confederate capital. Elena could see human ship Endeavor in the distance, looking tiny compared to the massive Confederate vessels. There is a species called the Harmonics, the Chancellor said. They live in a system near your Earth. We were planning to process them next month anyway. Elena watched in growing horror as the display changed to show a star system with 7 inhabited worlds. The planets looked peaceful, with cities that seemed to float in the clouds of gas-giant worlds. Like humans, the Harmonics are emotional and unpredictable. They communicate through music and refuse to adopt standard Confederate language protocols. They have proven to be stubborn. Confederate fleets appeared around each planet. Not just ships this time, but hundreds of them. Massive vessels that dwarfed anything Elena had ever imagined. Please, Elena said, don't do this just to prove a point to us. This is not just a demonstration, Chancellor HFY replied. This is necessary administrative processing. Your presence simply provides educational value. Elena watched helplessly as the Harmonic worlds tried to defend themselves. Their ships were beautiful, singing with musical weapons that created patterns of light and sound. But they were no match for Confederate firepower. One by one, the planets died. Not quickly like the Melodian colony, but slowly and methodically. The Confederates took their time, letting Elena see every detail. 7 worlds, billions of beings, an entire civilization that communicated through music, gone in 3 hours. Efficiency is important, the Chancellor explained as the last planet went dark. But sometimes a thorough demonstration is worth the extra time. Elena felt sick. She wanted to scream. She wanted to attack the smiling aliens around her. Instead, she forced herself to stay calm. I need to return to Earth to discuss this with my government, she said. Of course, we will provide safe passage. Chancellor Zexhai stood up. Ambassador Vasquez, I hope you understand that this decision is not personal. We actually like humans. You show great promise. But promise must be balanced against risk. Elena stood up as well. I understand your position, Chancellor. Excellent. Please remember that optimization is much easier than processing. We hope Earth makes the wise choice. As they walked back to their ship, Captain Rodriguez whispered to Elena, We could have taken them. There were only 4 of them. And accomplished what? Elena whispered back. Getting ourselves killed and giving them an excuse to attack Earth immediately? Dr. Chen was recording everything on his portable scanner. The whole galaxy is going to know about this, he said quietly. If we live long enough to tell them, Elena replied. Back on their ship, Elena sat in the captain's chair and thought about what she had to do. She had to return to Earth and tell them that their first contact with alien life had revealed a universe ruled by monsters. She had to explain that humanity had 6 months to decide between slavery and death. She also had to tell them that there might be a third option. The Confederates were powerful, but they had gotten soft. They had spent 1,000 years killing helpless victims. They had forgotten what it was like to fight an enemy that fought back. Elena activated the communication system and began recording a message for Earth. This is Ambassador Vasquez reporting from Confederate space. First contact has been completed. The results are not what we hoped. I'm coming home and we need to talk. All of us. Right now. She paused and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were the ashes of 7 worlds that had been murdered to make a point. Somewhere else were species living in fear, waiting for their turn to be processed. And tell Admiral Chen to start preparing our defenses. We're going to need them. The ship turned toward Earth and jumped into hyperspace, carrying the most important message in human history. The emergency session of the United Earth Assembly had been going for 6 hours. Elena stood at the podium, looking out at representatives from every nation on Earth. She had just finished showing them the recordings from Confederate space. The chamber was completely silent. President Maria Santos spoke first. Ambassador Vasquez, in your professional opinion, is there any possibility of negotiating a different outcome? Elena shook her head. No, Madam President. The Confederates don't negotiate. They process. They've given us 6 months to submit to genetic modification and cultural destruction, or they'll exterminate us like they've exterminated thousands of other species. The representative from China stood up. What are our options for defense? Elena looked at Admiral Sarah Chen, Dr. Chen's sister, who was sitting in the military section. The admiral stood and walked to the podium. Militarily, we're outgunned by a factor of about 10,000 to 1, Admiral Chen said bluntly. They have faster ships, stronger weapons, and energy shields we can't penetrate with conventional weapons. So we're dead, said the representative from Brazil. Not necessarily, Admiral Chen replied. She activated a holographic display showing Confederate ship designs. The enemy has one critical weakness. They've been fighting victims for so long, they've forgotten how to fight soldiers. Elena watched as the admiral explained what she meant. Every Confederate battle we observed followed the same pattern. Overwhelming force applied to helpless targets. No tactics, no strategy, no adaptation. They just show up and start shooting until everything is dead. The representative from Russia leaned forward. What does that mean for us? It means they don't know how to fight a war. They know how to conduct executions. Admiral Chen changed the display to show human military history. We know how to fight wars. We've been doing it for thousands of years, against each other. President Santos stood up. Are you saying we have a chance? I'm saying we have advantages they don't expect, Admiral Chen replied. They think our aggression and emotional nature are weaknesses, but those same traits make us dangerous in combat. We adapt, we improvise, we fight dirty, we never give up. Elena felt a spark of hope for the first time since leaving Confederate space. "What do you need?" President Santos asked. Admiral Chen smiled, and Elena saw something in that smile that would have terrified the Confederates if they had been there to see it. "I need every scientist, engineer, and military officer on Earth working around the clock for the next 6 months, and I need them to stop thinking about playing fair." The next few weeks transformed Earth into something the planet had never seen before. Every factory was converted to weapons production. Every research facility was focused on finding ways to kill aliens. Every military base became a training ground for a new kind of warfare. Dr. Chen led a team of scientists in studying the Confederate technology they had recorded. Within a month, they made their first breakthrough. "Their shields work by deflecting energy," he explained to Elena during one of her visits to the research facility. "But they don't stop matter that's moving slowly enough." "What does that mean?" "It means we can't shoot through their shields with lasers or missiles. But we can walk through them, or crawl, or float." Elena watched as Chen demonstrated with a small piece of metal. He threw it fast at a captured Confederate shield generator, and it bounced off. Then he pushed it slowly through the same shield, and it passed right through. "So we need to get close to them?" "Very close. Or we need to use weapons they're not designed to stop." Other teams were working on different problems. Engineer Maria Santos, no relation to the president, had been studying Confederate ship movements. "They move in perfect formations," she explained. "Beautiful to watch, but tactically stupid. They leave no room for individual ship movement. If you can break their formation, they can't adapt quickly." "How do we break their formation?" Santos showed Elena a new type of mine that her team had developed. "We can't make our ships faster than theirs, but we can make space dangerous for them. These mines create gravity wells. Set them up in the right pattern, and their perfect formations become death traps." Meanwhile, Admiral Chen was working with military strategists from around the world. They were developing tactics based on a simple principle. Don't fight the battle the enemy expects. The Confederates expect to show up in our solar system, demand surrender, and then either accept our submission or blast us to pieces, Admiral Chen explained to Elena. "But what if we're not here when they arrive?" Elena frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if Earth is empty when they get here? What if we've evacuated everyone to hidden bases throughout the solar system? What if instead of defending our world, we attack theirs?" The idea was audacious. Instead of waiting for the Confederates to come to Earth, humanity would take the fight to them. Fast ships carrying small teams would hit Confederate facilities throughout the galaxy while the main fleet was busy looking for humans in the solar system. "It's insane," Elena said. "It's human," Admiral Chen replied. "We don't fight fair. We don't stand still and let people shoot at us. We move. We hide. We hit the enemy where they don't expect it." The most secret project was being led by Dr. Lisa Park, a biochemist who had been studying the recordings of Confederate optimization procedures. "They've been modifying species for 1,000 years, she explained to Elena during a classified briefing. "They've removed aggression, independence, and creativity from dozens of races. That's horrible. It's also reversible." Dr. Park activated a holographic display showing genetic structures. "If we can get biological samples from the optimized species, we might be able to create treatments that restore their original nature." Elena stared at the display. "You mean we could free the slaves? We could do more than that. We could turn the Confederates' own victims into allies. Imagine if every optimized species in Confederate space suddenly remembered who they used to be and what had been done to them." The thought sent chills down Elena's spine. The Confederates controlled billions of beings throughout the galaxy. If even a fraction of them could be freed from genetic modification, the balance of power would shift dramatically. As the months passed, Elena watched Earth change. The fear from the first weeks gave way to determination, then to something else. Humans were angry. They had learned that the universe was ruled by bullies who killed anyone who stood up to them. More importantly, they had learned that these bullies had never faced anyone who knew how to fight back. President Santos called Elena to a final meeting 1 week before the Confederate deadline. "Are we ready?" the president asked. Elena looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. 6 months ago, they had been ordinary politicians dealing with ordinary problems. Now they were war leaders preparing to fight for the survival of their species. "The Confederates are expecting us to either submit or die," Elena said. "They're not expecting us to evolve." Admiral Chen stood up and activated a display showing Earth's new defensive network. Hidden bases throughout the solar system, fleets of new ships designed for guerrilla warfare, weapons that could turn Confederate technology against itself. "In 1 week, the Confederate fleet will arrive expecting to find a frightened planet full of primitives," Admiral Chen said. "Instead, they're going to find out why humans are the galaxy's most dangerous species." Elena looked out the window at Earth. It looked peaceful from space, but she knew better. Beneath that calm surface, 6 billion humans were preparing for war. She thought about Chancellor Zexhai and his cold, logical approach to genocide. She thought about the burning worlds and extinct species. She thought about the offer to make humans into something better. "No," she said quietly. "Ma'am?" President Santos asked. Elena turned back to the room. "I was just thinking about their offer to optimize us. They want to remove our aggression, our independence, our unpredictability." She smiled. "They have no idea that those are exactly the traits that are going to destroy them." Outside, Earth's sun shone down on a world that looked peaceful but was anything but. In 6 days, the Confederates would learn the difference between exterminating victims and fighting soldiers. They would learn why humans had survived wars, disasters, and themselves for thousands of years. Most importantly, they would learn what happened when someone threatened humanity's children. The Confederate Harmony Enforcement Fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system exactly on schedule. 100 massive ships, enough firepower to crack a planet, all perfectly arranged in Chancellor Zexhai's favorite formation. Admiral Velcara, commander of the fleet, opened communications to the third planet. He expected either immediate surrender or desperate pleas for mercy. Instead, he got Admiral Sarah Chen's face on his screen. "You're early," she said calmly. "We weren't expecting you for another few hours." Admiral Velcara was confused. The human looked completely relaxed. "I am Admiral Velcara of the Confederate Enforcement Fleet. You will surrender immediately or face processing." "I'm Admiral Chen of the Terran Defense Force," the human replied. "And I have a counteroffer." "You are in no position to make offers," Velcara said. "Where are your defensive fleets?" Admiral Chen smiled. "What defensive fleets?" Velcara looked at his sensors. Earth space was empty except for a few small ships that appeared to be cargo vessels. No defensive positions, no military formations, nothing. "Scan the planet," he ordered his officers. The results were impossible. Earth showed almost no life signs. The major cities appeared to be empty. "Where is your population?" Velcara demanded. "Gone," Admiral Chen said. "We evacuated 6 billion people in the last month. Turns out when you give someone 6 months' warning, they can prepare for almost anything." Velcara felt the first stirring of unease. This was not how processing operations were supposed to go. "It does not matter," he said. "We will find your hiding places and destroy them one by one." "You're welcome to try," Admiral Chen replied. "But first, let me show you something." The communication screen changed to show space around Nexus Prime, the Confederate capital. Velcara stared in shock at what he saw. Human ships, small, fast, and completely unlike anything in Confederate databases. They were attacking Confederate facilities throughout the capital system. How? Velkara whispered. Turns out your hyperspace routes are very predictable, Admiral Chen explained. We've been following your supply ships for months, learning your patrol patterns, mapping your defenses. On Velkara's screen, a Confederate orbital defense platform exploded as human ships hit it with weapons that seemed to phase right through its shields. Your shields don't stop slow-moving objects, Admiral Chen continued, so we developed weapons that move very slowly until they're inside the shield, then accelerate to very high speeds. Simple physics, really. Velkara watched in horror as more Confederate facilities died. This is impossible. You are primitives. We're creative, Admiral Chen corrected. Big difference. Suddenly, Velkara's fleet was surrounded. Human ships appeared from behind asteroids, from the dark side of planets, from empty space where sensors showed nothing. They were small and fast, and completely ignored Confederate formation tactics. You cannot defeat us, Velkara said, but his voice was no longer confident. We have superior numbers, superior weapons. You have superior technology, Admiral Chen agreed, but you've forgotten how to fight. When was the last time anyone shot back at you, Admiral? The human ships opened fire. Their weapons were primitive by Confederate standards, but they struck in ways that Confederate doctrine had never prepared for. Instead of meeting the fleet head-on, they attacked from all sides at once. Instead of targeting the strongest ships first, they went after support vessels and communication relays. Within minutes, Velkara's perfect formation was in chaos. Ships collided with each other as captains tried to respond to attacks from directions that shouldn't have been possible. You fight like cowards, Velkara snarled. We fight like survivors, Admiral Chen replied. There's a difference. The battle was unlike anything in Confederate military history. The humans refused to engage in proper formation combat. They used asteroids as weapons, turning them into guided missiles with gravity drives. They used the sun's radiation to blind Confederate sensors. They even used Confederate ships against each other, hacking communication systems and sending false orders. But the real surprise came when the first Confederate ship was boarded. Velkara watched his tactical display in disbelief as human soldiers somehow got inside the ship without breaking through the shields. The boarding pods had approached so slowly that the automated defenses didn't recognize them as threats. Impossible, he said again. The boarders were worse than Velkara had imagined. Humans didn't just fight to win. They fought with a viciousness that the Confederates had bred out of themselves centuries ago. They used their own bodies as weapons when necessary. They adapted to alien ship layouts within minutes. They turned Confederate technology against its creators. Worst of all, they seemed to enjoy it. Admiral, one of Velkara's officers reported, we're receiving messages from throughout Confederate space. There are uprisings on over 40 worlds. Velkara felt his worst fears confirmed. What kind of uprisings? The optimized populations. They're reverting to their original genetic patterns. They're remembering who they were before modification. On the tactical display, Velkara watched another Confederate ship fall to human borders. But the humans weren't just destroying the ships. They were capturing them, learning from them. How are they reversing genetic optimization? Velkara demanded. Admiral Chen's face appeared on his screen again. Dr. Lisa Park sends her regards, she said. Turns out when you modify someone's genetics, you leave traces of what they used to be. We developed treatments that can restore original genetic patterns. We've been distributing them throughout Confederate space for the past month. Velkara stared at her. You've been in our space for months? Admiral, we've been everywhere. Did you really think you could threaten Earth and we'd just sit here waiting for you to arrive? The communications screen split to show images from across the galaxy, Confederate facilities burning, prison camps being liberated, optimized species remembering their original nature and turning against their oppressors. "This is Chancellor Zexhai," came a voice from Nexus Prime. "All units return to defend the capital immediately." Admiral Chen laughed. "I don't think so, Chancellor." The screen showed Nexus Prime's orbital defenses falling one by one, but these weren't being destroyed by human ships. They were being taken over by the species the Confederates had optimized over the centuries. "You see, Chancellor, we did some research on Confederate history," Admiral Chen continued. "All those species you archived, turns out you didn't kill them all. You kept some alive as slaves, modified their genetics to make them compliant." On the screen, beings that looked like living crystals were tearing apart a Confederate command center with their bare hands. "The crystal builders are very unhappy with you," Admiral Chen noted. "Apparently they remember being artistic beings before you turned them into construction workers." More images flooded the screen. The plant-like gardeners were strangling Confederate officials with their roots. The aquatic swimmers were flooding Confederate bases. The flying song weavers were using their restored voices to shatter Confederate equipment with focused sound. Velkara's fleet was falling apart around him. Half his ships were captured. Most of the others were too damaged to fight. His own ship was surrounded by small human vessels that danced around his weapons like insects. "This is Admiral Velkara to all Confederate forces," he broadcast. "I am prepared to discuss terms of surrender." Admiral Chen's face appeared on his screen one last time. "Terms?" "Yes. We can negotiate a settlement. Perhaps territorial divisions, separate spheres of influence." Admiral Chen's expression was cold. "Admiral, you just tried to commit genocide against my species. Before that, you committed actual genocide against thousands of others. You think we're going to negotiate with you? What do you want?" "Unconditional surrender, full accountability for war crimes, and complete dismantling of the Confederate government." Velkara felt desperation rising in his chest. "You cannot govern the galaxy. You are one species among thousands." "We're not going to govern the galaxy," Admiral Chen replied. "We're going to liberate it." The communication screen changed to show a new image. Representatives from dozens of species standing together on a space station. Some Velkara recognized as archived species that should have been extinct. Others were former Confederate members who had abandoned their allegiance. "This is the Galactic Liberation Council," Admiral Chen announced. "Every free species in the galaxy is represented here. Your 1,000-year reign of terror is over." Velkara looked around his bridge at officers who had never experienced defeat. Many of them looked confused, as if the concept of losing was foreign to them. "How?" he asked quietly. "You made one critical mistake," Admiral Chen said. "You assumed that being peaceful meant being weak. You forgot that there's a difference between choosing not to fight and not knowing how to fight." She paused and looked directly at Velkara through the screen. "Humans choose peace when possible, but when someone threatens our families, our freedom, or our future, we become the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. We become soldiers." Velkara's ship shuddered as human boarding pods attached to the hull. "This is the end of the Confederation," Admiral Chen continued. "But it's also the beginning of something better. A galaxy where species are free to be themselves, where diversity is celebrated, not eliminated, where no one has to choose between slavery and death." The bridge doors opened and human soldiers entered. They moved with the confident ease of beings who had been fighting wars for thousands of years. "You offered humanity a choice," Admiral Chen said as Velkara raised his hands in surrender. "Submit or be destroyed. We chose a third option." "What option?" Velkara asked. Admiral Chen smiled. "We chose to win." 2 years later, Elena stood in the council chamber of the new Galactic Alliance. Around her sat representatives from over 300 species. Some were survivors of Confederate genocide. Others were former Confederate members who had chosen freedom. Many were species that had been thought extinct but were now rebuilding their civilizations. The chamber was noisy, chaotic, and completely unorganized. Species argued in dozens of languages about trade routes, territorial disputes, and resource allocation. It was everything the Confederate system had been designed to prevent. Elena thought it was beautiful. Ambassador HFY entered the chamber in chains. The former chancellor was now a prisoner awaiting trial for crimes against galactic civilization. He looked around the chaotic assembly with obvious disgust. "This is why the Confederation was necessary," he said to Elena as guards led him past. "Look at this chaos, this inefficiency. You have doomed the galaxy to disorder." Elena watched the assembly where a crystal being was arguing passionately with a gaseous entity about shipping regulations while a plant-like delegate grew flowers in real time to express emotions. "You're right," she said. "It is chaotic. It's also free." She turned to face the former chancellor. "You wanted to create a perfect galaxy. But perfection is just another word for death. Life is messy. Life is unpredictable. Life is worth fighting for." As the guards led HFY away, Elena returned to her seat among the human delegation. Earth was now the unofficial leader of the Galactic Alliance, not because they demanded it, but because they had earned it. They had been the ones to stand up to the bullies. They had been the ones to say, "Enough." Admiral Chen approached her seat. "The final Confederate holdouts on Rigel 7 have surrendered," she reported. "That's the last of them." Elena nodded. "And the liberation treatments?" "Dr. Park's team has now restored original genetics to over 2 million beings across 90 systems. The Crystal Builders want to name their first new city after her." Elena smiled. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy as supplicants, hoping for acceptance. They were now protectors of the free, guardians of the weak, and the species that had taught the universe a simple lesson. Sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to hit back harder than they can imagine. Outside the station's windows, Elena could see ships from hundreds of worlds coming and going in peaceful trade. Beings that had been slaves were now free. Species that had been marked for extinction were rebuilding their cultures. The galaxy was chaotic, inefficient, and absolutely alive with possibility. It was everything the Confederation had tried to prevent. It was everything humans had fought to protect. Elena looked up at the stars and thought about the future. Somewhere out there might be other bullies who thought might made right, other empires that believed in perfection through force. They would learn, as the Confederates had learned, that humanity had a simple response to threats against the innocent. Enough. No more courtesy.